All right, don't be playing games. I hope y'all don't start playing games with this offer. Y'all already see where these owners are at. They have had enough. They've had enough of y'all games. Whatever they send, y'all need to sign on the dotted line at this point because we might not have no season if y'all keep playing games.
6 weeks. The WNBA owners left the players' union on read for 6 full weeks. No response, no counter-offer, just silence. And when they finally did respond this past Friday, they sent one message. This is our final offer. Take it or leave it. Because what we just heard right there, that's not coming from some random commentator. That's the sentiment echoing through front offices across the league right now. The expansion draft for Golden State and Toronto, delayed indefinitely. Free agency that was supposed to start in February, still froze. 80% of the league's players are free agents right now, waiting to cash in on what everyone assumed would be massive raises. Instead, they're stuck in limbo, while their union leadership and team owners play the highest stakes game of chicken in WNBA history.
Realistic viewpoint and stop with all this compromise nonsense, all this delusion, because the only reason all this new money is coming in here is because of Caitlin Clark. Let's be very, very, very clear. Okay, here it says, it came Friday evening when the WNBA submitted its latest proposal to the union. A source told ESPN, confirming news first reported by the Associated Press. Okay, I went over that. It wasn't immediately known what the league's new offer entailed. Speaking earlier Friday.
Here's what actually happened. Back in December, the players voted to authorize a strike. That's their nuclear option, their leverage play. The union submitted their proposal asking for roughly 30% of gross revenue. That's revenue before expenses get paid. The league looked at that number, looked at their books, and essentially said, we need to talk about what expenses means first. Because here's the reality that's driving this entire negotiation. The WNBA has never been profitable as a league. For 28 years, NBA subsidies kept it alive. Then Caitlin Clark happened. Suddenly you've got record television ratings, sold-out arenas, and major sponsors actually returning calls. The 2025 season was supposed to be the breakthrough year. Instead, it might not happen at all.
They're paid. Those expenses include upgraded facilities, chartered flights, 5-star hotels, medical services, security, and arenas. So the WNBA owners are saying, look, y'all want all this new money. We don't trust that y'all are not going to beat the hell out of Caitlin Clark and we're going to lose money. Therefore, y'all get paid. Y'all get your percentage after all the bills is paid around here. And being that we ain't received no profit, we want to make sure the bills is paid.
The league's previous offer, the one that came before this 6-week silence, included some significant concessions. Maximum salaries would jump substantially. Charter flights would be codified in the contract, not just a temporary perk. First-class travel accommodation, upgraded medical services, and security. 2 additional developmental player slots per team. And here's an interesting one. Pregnant players would have the right to refuse trades. But the sticking point, the issue that's holding up everything, comes down to one phrase: revenue sharing. The players want 30% of gross revenue. The owners are offering over 70% of net revenue. Those sound similar until you understand what net means. Net revenue is what's left after you pay for those charter flights, those 5-star hotels, those upgraded facilities, those expanded medical staffs. The owners are essentially saying, we'll give you the majority of the profits, but we're paying the bills first.
Nah, that don't have nothing to do with the basketball side. I don't know. Increasing guaranteed contracts on a team and codifying charter flights, as well as their first-class travel considerations. If a new CBA isn't agreed upon soon, it could delay the start of the 2026 season. It has already delayed the expansion draft for Toronto and Portland. It has delayed the expansion draft significantly, you guys. The expansion draft is being absolutely cooked right now. Like, it says the last CBA was announced.
Now here's where this gets complicated. Union President Nikki Ogwumike was in Nashville last Thursday at Athletes Unlimited, taking the pulse of players. She told the Associated Press that despite everything, a strike isn't imminent. She said they're negotiating in good faith, and that players 100% want to play this year. But then the union's social media account posted a video about the 1964 NBA All-Star Game strike. That's not exactly the message you send when you're feeling optimistic about negotiations. And there's a divide forming that nobody wants to talk about publicly. You've got maybe 10 to 12 players who can afford to sit out a season. They're playing an unrivaled, They've got overseas contracts. They've got endorsement deals. Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Ogwumike herself. They'll be fine financially if the 2025 season gets cancelled. But the rest of the league, they need these paychecks. They need this deal to get done.
Is not imminent, although the union posted a social media video about the 1964 NBA All-Star Game strike. And the next the NBA All-Star Game is next weekend in Los Angeles. Having a strike on the table is something that we're very much aware of, but there's so many more conversations that have to happen. We're not just going to say, hey, today the day we'll strike. I think that's where we're demonstrating right now is negotiating in good faith. You guys need to sign whatever offer they send to y'all at this point. Y'all are running out of options.
The timeline is what makes this genuinely urgent now. When the last CBA was finalized in January 2020, it took a full month after the agreement just to announce it. Then you need time for the expansion draft, which was supposed to happen weeks ago, then free agency, then the regular draft, then training camps. The season is scheduled to tip off May 8th. We're looking at potentially 2 months from agreement to opening night. And there's no agreement yet. Every game that gets canceled costs both sides money. Television contracts have guarantees built in about number of games. Sponsors have activation plans tied to specific dates. Arenas have other events booked if the WNBA isn't using those dates. This isn't just about missing a few games in May. If this drags into April without resolution, you're looking at the possibility of canceling the entire season.
What you need to be doing is signing a deal. You need to be getting a deal done so everybody can make their money, not just you, Nneka Ogwumike, who's going to go make money in Project B, not just Sophie Cunningham, who's going to make money in Project B, not just Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, who are getting money from Unrivaled, okay? Not just y'all. It's a bunch of other players who are not in these leagues who want and need their checks. This is the WNBA's final offer. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think.
So why did the owners wait 6 weeks to respond? That's the question that should tell you everything about the power dynamic here. They didn't need to rush. They watched the players' union post on social media, watched them organize meetings, watched them try to apply public pressure, and the owners just went about their business. Because they know something the union seems to be forgetting. The leverage isn't equal here. The owners can absorb a canceled season. It's not ideal, but they've got other investments, other revenue streams. The players, especially the ones outside that top tier, they can't. And more importantly, the owners know that the only reason all this new money is flooding into the league right now is because of one player. Caitlin Clark generated ratings that the WNBA had never seen before. She's the reason sponsors are interested. She's the reason television networks are paying attention. She's the reason casual fans bought tickets.
Significant work remains for the season to start on time, but she remains confident games will be played in 2026. She said, I know our players 100% want to play this year. She said in a wide-ranging interview with the Associated Press, we want a season. Well, y'all need to act like it. Sign the damn proposal.
Here's what makes this final offer particularly significant. The owners aren't just saying, this is our best offer. They're saying this is our only offer. There's no more negotiation room implied in that language. It's a take-it-or-leave-it proposition, and given that they waited 6 weeks to deliver it, that suggests they're prepared for the players to leave it. They're prepared to cancel the season if necessary. Think about what that means strategically. The owners believe they have more to lose by giving in to the players' demands than they do by canceling a season. That's a calculation based on long-term financial sustainability. They're looking at the next 10 years of the league, not just, and their calculation appears to be that if they agree to 30% of gross revenue now, before they've proven the league can actually sustain profitability, they're locking themselves into a financial structure that could collapse the entire enterprise. The players' union is betting that public pressure and the threat of losing this momentum season will force ownership to cave. They're betting that the owners won't want to be seen as the bad guys who canceled the season right when the WNBA was finally breaking through. But that bet assumes the owners care more about public perception than they do about the actual financial numbers. And this 6-week silence suggests that assumption might be wrong. Meanwhile, you've got Golden State and Toronto, two expansion franchises that paid $35 million each for the right to join the league, sitting in limbo. Their expansion draft was supposed to happen already. They're supposed to be building rosters, hiring coaching staffs, selling season tickets, creating marketing campaigns. Instead, They're in a holding pattern with no clear timeline for when they can actually start operating as WNBA franchises. That's not a small thing. That's a massive business disruption that's costing real money every single day. And here's what nobody's really addressing. What happens to fan interest if the season gets canceled? The WNBA spent all of 2024 building momentum, attracting new fans, creating genuine mainstream interest for the first time in league history. If you tell all those new fans, sorry, no games this year because of a labor dispute, how many of them are still going to care when the league comes back in Momentum is incredibly difficult to build and incredibly easy to lose. The players' union keeps talking about compromise, but compromise requires both sides to move toward each other. Right now, it looks like both sides are moving apart. The players want gross revenue sharing. The owners are offering net revenue share. Those aren't positions you can split down the middle. It's a fundamental disagreement about how the business should operate. Either you pay expenses first and then split what's left, or you split everything and then pay expenses out of the owner's share. There's no middle ground there. Ojibwangike said that once revenue sharing gets solved, everything else will fall into place quickly. But that's like saying once you solve the hardest part of the negotiation, the easy parts will be easy. Revenue sharing is the entire negotiation. Everything else, the charter flights, the hotel accommodations, the expanded rosters, all of that is already essentially agreed upon. It's just this one massive issue standing in the way. What makes this particularly frustrating is that both sides actually want the same thing long term. They both want a sustainable, profitable WNBA that can support higher salaries and better working conditions. The disagreement is about how to get there. The players want to lock in their percentage of revenue now, while the money is flowing in. The owners want to make sure the business model actually works before they commit to a specific split. And you can understand both perspectives. If you're a player, you've been underpaid for years while being told wait until the league is profitable. Now the league is finally seeing real revenue growth, and you want to make sure you get your share before it disappears. If you're an owner, you've been subsidizing losses for years while being told, keep investing, it'll pay off eventually. Now you're finally seeing that payoff materialize, but you want to make sure it's sustainable before you commit to a financial structure that might kill the golden goose. The problem is that time is running out for both sides to figure this out. Every day without an agreement is another day of lost preparation time for the season. Every day is another day that fans get more uncertain about whether there will even be a season to watch. Every day is another day that sponsors and television partners start making contingency plans for what they'll do if the WNBA isn't playing games in May. So what happens next? The players' union has to decide whether this final offer is good enough. They have to decide whether the guaranteed maximums, the codified benefits, the expanded rosters, and the 70+% of net revenue is worth giving up their demand for gross revenue share. They have to decide whether fighting for that principle is worth the risk of losing an entire season. And they have to make that decision, knowing that their leverage is probably weaker than they think it is. Because here's the reality that should be driving this decision. The owners just demonstrated that they're willing to wait. They're willing to let deadlines pass. They're willing to absorb the public relations hit of being seen as the obstacle to a deal. They sent their final offer and basically said, take your time deciding. But this is it. That's not the behavior of a side that feels pressure to compromise. That's the behavior of a side that believes they hold the stronger position. The question now is whether the players' union leadership recognizes that reality or whether they're going to keep pushing for something the owners have clearly decided they won't get. Because if they keep pushing, if they reject this final offer and try to apply more pressure, they might find out that the owners meant exactly what they said. Final offer. No more negotiation. Take it or leave it. And if you leave it, we'll see you in